Welcome to TradeTheNBA.com. This is John's reports for the 16th of October. Well, we filled back in the positive extreme that took place right here on the big up day. Filled it back in. Some people would just call this falling three methods, where you then typically base and would start your next leg back up. Though we're looking at some modestly weak readings here. We do have the expansion of the magenta green, which is usually an acceleration, but in this particular case, it's a negative acceleration at this particular point. The bonus side of this is the extreme not dipping below the red line or anything, so we're likely to just maintain ourselves around here. We're right at the ABM yellow, so that becomes very clear and defined marker. That's at 34.58 range with the magenta all the way down at 34.20. So from that standpoint, it's not horrible. I mean, we're still up at the high elevations, relatively speaking. NQ, again, we talked about the NQ being the lead on this and that it needed to come down and fill it, and that would likely be a bigger follow-through for the S&P, and it sure enough was. So where we got just the modest fill back here of the NASDAQ, it actually returned much quicker. And not quite as dramatic from a Power Mode 2 standpoint as well. So the difference between two markets, you have this stable economy markets at the S&P 500 versus your tech, which is still continuing to grow because the obviously continuation of lockdowns. Of course, who knows, after the election everything may change and people will realize that it's a normalized severe flu that needs extra attention. But again, without the hospitalization rates, this idea of testing just to have numbers, it really doesn't mean a whole lot. It's rather foolish. The lack of common sense that's taking place is just pretty staggering. From Euro, still, the Euro has got problems. It's a whole different story. And of course, gold. Again, gold is really going to be relative to uncertainty. And if the election appears to be closer and things like that, you probably see spikes in gold that'll be reflective of that. It was an interesting day from a 5K standpoint. We started off with the weakness early on, and in some of these cases with the Power Mode 2, these will be adjustments that will be coming out of it with the declining long and short algo setups right there, but also some blank spaces that need to be filled in under unique circumstances with no DOC steel reset, and looking into the code of that and why. Because in the Power Mode 2 program, it shows up perfectly here with an orange setup. You get your clean buy. I mean, of course, it breaks down with the steel cross below and the orange pop above right over here. Right before it comes back, matches the lows, and then puts in another turnaround from the long short algo here that leads to the eventual rise back up to the 100%. So it was just an interesting dichotomy, but these are some of the little unique scenarios that there could be just a small little factor in there that caused it to trigger that, and those are the things you have to find, and sometimes until it actually happens you can't see it. So from that aspect, good to see that kind of development helps refine and detail the programs even tighter. So it's always a good thing. But from a Power Mode 2 standpoint, we ended up with the long algo signaling right at the key points throughout that led to the next levels of expansion going through. And when you compare them with the crosses of the Power Mo at various times, it becomes an interesting study. This was kind of a unique day. It just seemed to be, not that it wasn't consistent with its move, but the way the configurations went gave for some interesting signaling. So it was just different to see that take place. And so, but to me, I like it because it's a great time to be able to explore some of the unique configurations that we otherwise don't see a lot of. And it was nice to have that kind of range. We had a few positive extremes come back into this setup, and basically we would look for those to fill. Lowest one would be right around here at the 34.67 range. Pretty close to that right now. What did we get to? 70. So within a couple of points of it already in the pre-market lows, and that's what I'd be looking for. is just more of this same. Again, we have our lower algo points, but as we develop new ones going through, it's just going to be continued climbing. There's no change in the overall target. We're still looking towards that 4,000. It's just a question of how market participants believe things are improving either economically or the chances of stimulus. That's really what's going to move things. If they think there's going to be some kind of deal, or if they know that it's going to happen right after the election, they'll still pre-purchase with the idea of it taking place, and then when it actually happens, then you'll sell into the news. So that's how that typically plays out. As always, though, as I make these adjustments and that, we'll certainly put them up on the Skype channel. Trade well. We'll talk to you later.